Right, this is the first in a series of videos about how to deal with and service the paint on your bike. The bike you can see in front of you is one that I'm currently rebuilding and working on for somebody. I'm rebuilding the wheels and installing a Ultegra 11-speed group set on it, as well as a load of other new components. So I've taken the opportunity to service the paint at the same time. This bike will provide a very good example of how to do this. One, because it's white, so you can see what's going on. And two, because it's been treated like absolute shit and is in a right fucking state, okay? I don't know what this person's been doing with it. It looks like on their bike rides, they ride to the mountains, ride up the mountains, and then just kick the bike all the way down the mountain, get back on it, and then ride home. It's absolutely fucked. So what we're going to do is show you the various stages of making the paint look excellent again. There are a number of stages to this, and this video will look at the first part, which involves cleaning it, leveling it off, and getting it ready to fix the scratches. Fixing the scratches and everything like that will be done in a second video, all right? Now, please note that the procedures in this video are only to be used on gloss paintwork. Don't do what I'm about to show you on a matte frame or a semi-matte frame or a satin frame. If you do it on one of those frames, your frame will end up gloss. If you want your frame to end up gloss, that's cool, but if not, don't do it, okay? I'll address how to deal with your matte and satin frames in a different video. So let's get started. Now, to do this, you're going to need some tools. Luckily, the tools you need are pretty much available anywhere, and you might even have them already. First thing is wet tissues, these things. Next is a spray-on degreaser or some sort of degreaser. Next is some 1200 grit sandpaper, some 2000 grit sandpaper, and some 3000 grit sandpaper. Use these numbers, so that's 1200, 2000, 3000. Don't use any other numbers, all right? Use these ones. Next is some fine polishing compound, and then some finishing polishing compound. This one is slightly gritty, and this one is quite smooth. So this is the last step, okay? I'm sure you can find your own stuff if you don't have access to the Tamiya stuff. And then this is a microfiber cloth. Finally, a bowl of water to soak the wet and dry paper in. Now, before we actually get started, let's talk about paint for a bit. On bicycles, paint is pretty primitive. The way it works is you've got the substrate, which is the material that it sits on. Now, in this case, this is an aluminium frame. If your frame's carbon, then the substrate is carbon. Then on top of this, the manufacturer will generally spray a primer, and then they will spray the colour, base colour, which is white here. And then they will spray on top of that any accents, and then they will spray on top or use a sticker, a transfer, the logo. After all of that is done, then they spray a clear coat over the whole thing. Now, what we are going to do in this step is mainly just deal with the clear coat. All those tools I showed you, we're going to use to basically smooth down the clear coat. Now, there's various different levels of damage that can happen to paint. And in this stage, we're just dealing with the superficial damage and wear and dirt that affects the clear coat. Of course, on this frame, there'll be some much deeper damage, which goes through the clear coat to the layers underneath. But those will be dealt with in the next video. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to level off the clear coat and make it look beautiful. Now, this has a couple of benefits. One, it looks nice. Two, it allows you to actually properly clean the frame, properly clean the paint, which will allow you to see the edge and in perfect clarity any of the deeper damage. So at the moment, any kind of scratches and stuff on the frame will be filled with dirt and grime, and you're not sure where they start and end. So fixing them is impossible at the moment. But once you've dealt with the clear coat and once you've got that looking as good as possible, and once it's totally smooth, then that will allow you to really see what's happening with the paint. And it will allow you to then deal with any, deeper scratches or anything that needs to be repainted or all of that kind of stuff. Now, another thing to say is during all of your activities with clear coat, what you're essentially doing is you're removing material. Any polishing, sanding, compounding, that's removing material, okay? So what you need to do is err on the side of caution during all of this process. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's very possible to sand too hard and go all the way through the clear coat. So err on the side of caution as the overall rule here. If you think you're pressing too hard, you probably are pressing too hard. All right, so don't. Now, the best way to do this is to take the bike completely apart so that you just have the frame in your hands when you're doing the work. Now, I've been working on this bike and I don't want to take it apart again, so I'm not going to do that. But for your work, I strongly urge you to take it apart as much as you can and as much as you have the tools for before you do this. Taking it fully apart allows you to really, do a good job on it. So that's the best way to do it. And it also means that, nothing gets in the way. So the first step is to just use these wet tissues to wipe off the frame. So all you do is you just wipe it like this. Any dirt will come off. This stage is purely just to get any dirt, mud, debris, etc., any oily stuff off the frame, okay? Don't worry if your frame doesn't look very clean when you're doing this, because the next stage will be the deep clean. This frame is actually clean because I've done it. Yeah, you can just see what I'm doing here. You're just wiping the frame off, all right? Do it all the way around. Get it as clean as you can, all right? You'll find all sorts of crap coming off it. And that's it. The next stage then is using chemical degreaser to deep clean the frame, okay? Now this should start to clean out any sort of scratches that you can see, which will allow you to see the edge of the scratches a bit better, but it won't fully clean them. Okay, so just go over your whole frame like that, all right? Get it as clean as you can. Now this will look really nice already, and you may be tempted just to leave it. Don't, because you haven't finished. Now the next stage involves using this sandpaper. Now this is the 1200 grit, okay? So we soak it in some water. There's various schools of thought that tell you how long you should soak it for. Some people soak it overnight. I reckon, 5 minutes is all right. Once it's been soaked, you're ready to start using it on the frame. Now, as you can see, this frame's got all sorts of damage on it. We're not going to be able to fix this in this video, but what we are going to do is clean up the surrounding paint and try and get some of this dirt out of the scratches so we can better see them. The first stage then, this is the 1200 grit sandpaper. We're just gonna lightly, and I mean very lightly, just go over the frame and start to smooth off the clear coat. Now I'm really not pushing very hard at all. And at this point, you'll notice that the water coming off starts to take on a bit of a cloudy look. You probably can't see it on the camera, but there's a cloudiness to that. And that cloudiness is actually the clear coat in the water, okay? So as soon as you start seeing that, you know that you're cutting into the clear coat. So you've got to go very, very lightly. Please err on the side of caution. Don't go hard. In fact, you can run your finger over it and you can feel that that's actually been smoothed off fairly nicely. And that's really enough at that stage. So then we wipe it down with a wet tissue and then we dry it. And at this point, you'll notice that your paint, again, it's probably a little bit hard to see on the video, but the paint will start taking on a sort of a dull finish. Now, don't worry about that. You haven't fucked your paint up. That's actually what it should be like. You then take your 2000 grit wet and dry paper that you've soaked in water, and you do the same process again, very lightly going over the paint, okay? You'll probably start to see more of that cloudy water coming off, which is the clear coat. All right, that's enough there. It's starting to look a bit dirty, the water that's coming off of it. So once more we wipe it down. Yeah, you can really see that's taking on a matte finish there. Dry it off again. Okay. Yeah, that's getting smooth. We do the 3000 grit sandpaper soaked in water. So essentially what we're doing is we're going from a quite a heavy grit down to a fine grit in stages. The heavier grit, the 1200, takes off the surface of the damage. Then the 2000, it does the same thing but in a finer grade. And then the 3000 starts to bring it back to an even surface, which will mean that it's no longer matte. Okay. It will still not be completely perfect, but then that's where the compounding polish comes in. Okay, now that's looking pretty level. It looks a bit matte, but it's looking very level. I'm going to run my fingers over it. Obviously, you can't feel what I'm feeling, but that is a lot smoother than it was. The next step, we take some of this polishing compound. This is not the finest one. This is the medium one. So you just need a little bit like that, and you rub it in to the cloth. So you're sort of impregnating the cloth with it. And then you just go over the frame. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but that's actually coming back to a polish now. All right, give that a wipe. Okay, that's getting better. Yep, that's really getting smooth now. The final stage is this stuff. This is the polishing finish. Again, we start polishing. Right, yeah, that's getting really nice now. Okay, that is really smooth now, really good. And the edges of these scratches are a bit more defined. So in the next video, we can deal with those. But the logo there is really good, really smooth. Now, yeah, you need to go over the entire frame doing this, so it's a labour of love. But once you've done it, your frame will be super smooth and it will look absolutely excellent. If you don't have any scratches on your frame and your frame's just a bit grimy and a bit like the coating's not totally smooth, if you do these steps, it will look better than brand new. It will look better than it was in the showroom. If you do have scratches, do this first stage and then watch the second video when I make it, and I'll show you how to deal with all the scratches. But that really is how you make your frame look polished and shiny. Now, at this point, I must point out that the methods I'm showing you here are very hands-on and don't use any power tools. And they are, compared to what a lot of guys do, pretty basic. The reason I'm making this video is to show regular people how they can make their frames look a bit better. Paintwork on bikes is generally very, very basic when you compare it to cars. If you look at some of the car polishing and car detailing videos on YouTube, the stuff they're doing on there is incredibly advanced compared to what I've just showed you. If you want to take it a lot further, then I urge you to check out channels like Ammo NYC, which is AMMO NYC. I'll put a link in the description. That guy, he doesn't do bikes, it's purely cars, but the level that he goes to with polishing and cleaning and detailing and fixing scratches is just fucking excellent, wonderful, which is where I sort of picked up a lot of hints. But yeah, give these techniques a go and see what you think. And I'll post the next video about how to deal with the scratches once I've done it. Okay?